You have done everything right. You switched to whole wheat. You replaced your soda with orange juice. You eat yogurt for breakfast because the label says low fat and heart healthy. And yet your doctor just told you your fasting glucose is creeping up, your A1C is at 6.1, and you are officially pre-diabetic. You are 63 years old and you cannot understand what went wrong. I can tell you exactly what went wrong. Because after the age of 60, your metabolism undergoes a series of invisible shifts that turn certain so-called healthy foods into blood sugar landmines. And the food that causes the most damage is one that almost every person over 60 eats for breakfast and genuinely believes is protecting their heart. I am Dr. Clara Rossi, an endocrinologist with over 20 years of clinical experience specializing in type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, and insulin resistance, with a particular focus on metabolic health in adults over 60. A 2009 analysis from the Diabetes Prevention Program trial published in The Lancet followed over 3,000 adults at high risk for diabetes and found that the incidence of type 2 diabetes increased most sharply in participants over the age of 60. In my clinical experience, the majority of my patients who develop prediabetes or type 2 after 60 are not eating junk food. They are eating foods they were told were healthy. Foods that may have been perfectly fine at 40 but have become metabolically dangerous at 65. And almost no one is telling them this. Today, I am going to walk you through 7 specific foods that become genuinely problematic for your blood sugar after the age of 60. I will explain the biological reason each one hits harder as you age. I will give you the precise substitution for each, and I will tell you exactly which common breakfast item, something that probably has a red heart symbol on its box right now, is accelerating both muscle loss and insulin resistance simultaneously. That item is our final reveal, and it carries a hidden risk that goes far beyond blood sugar. Everything we discuss here is backed by published, peer-reviewed research. Please remember that everything we discuss here is for educational purposes only. You must never stop taking your prescribed diabetes medications or change your medical regimen without speaking directly to your own physician first. Number 1. Fruit juice. The glass of liquid sugar your doctor never warned you about. I understand the logic. Fruit is healthy, therefore fruit juice must be healthy. It says 100% real fruit on the label. It has vitamins. Your cardiologist may have even nodded when you mentioned you drink it with breakfast. But here is what happens biologically when you drink a glass of orange juice after the age of 60. One 8-ounce glass of orange juice contains roughly 26 grams of sugar. That is the sugar content of approximately 4 whole oranges, but without any of the fiber that would slow its absorption. When you eat a whole orange, the fiber matrix forces your digestive system to break it down gradually. Sugar enters your bloodstream slowly, and your insulin response is measured and manageable. When you drink the juice, that sugar hits your bloodstream like a fire hose. There is no fiber buffer. Your pancreas has to scramble to produce a massive insulin spike, and after 60, your pancreatic beta cells are less responsive than they were at 40. Your insulin sensitivity has naturally declined. A 2013 study published in the BMJ analyzing data from over 187,000 participants found that consuming whole fruits was associated with a lower risk of type 2 diabetes, while drinking fruit juice was associated with a significantly increased risk. Let me tell you about a patient of mine named Richard, 67, a retired postal worker. Richard came to me with a fasting glucose of 132. When I reviewed his diet, I found nothing obviously wrong until I asked about beverages. Richard was drinking 16 ounces of apple juice every single morning. He had been doing it for 11 years. He was consuming over 50 grams of liquid sugar before 8 in the morning every day, and he genuinely believed it was one of the healthiest things he did. We replaced his juice with whole fruit, 1 small apple, sliced with a tablespoon of almond butter. Within 8 weeks, his fasting glucose dropped to 112. Same fruit, completely different metabolic outcome. The practical takeaway: eliminate fruit juice entirely. Replace it with whole fruit. one medium orange, one small apple, a half cup of berries. You get the vitamins, you get the phytonutrients, and you get the fiber that keeps your blood sugar from spiking. Leave me a comment below. What do you drink with breakfast every morning? I want to know what is in your glass. Number 2, low-fat flavored yogurt, the breakfast that is secretly a dessert. This one breaks my heart because my patients are trying so hard to do the right thing. They stand in the dairy aisle, they see low fat on the label, they see the word yogurt, and they think they are making a smart, healthy choice. But here's what happens when manufacturers remove fat from yogurt. Fat carries flavor. When you remove it, the yogurt tastes like wet chalk. So they add sugar. A single 6-ounce container of a popular low-fat vanilla yogurt contains between 19 and 26 grams of added sugar. That is more sugar than a chocolate-glazed donut. And unlike a donut, which you know is unhealthy, the yogurt is wrapped in the language of wellness. It says things like probiotic and protein and part of a balanced breakfast. I had a patient named Helen, 61 years old, a retired school teacher. Helen ate low-fat strawberry yogurt religiously every morning for breakfast. She told me it was her one healthy habit she was proud of. When I showed her the nutrition label, 23 grams of sugar, she genuinely did not believe me. She thought I was reading the wrong product. That yogurt was spiking her blood sugar to 178 milligrams per deciliter within 90 minutes of eating it. We tracked it on a continuous glucose monitor, and she watched the spike happen in real time on her phone. The look on her face told me everything. We switched Helen to plain full-fat Greek yogurt, no added sugar, topped with a handful of walnuts and a quarter cup of fresh blueberries. Her post-breakfast glucose peak dropped from 178 to 126. Same meal occasion, radically different metabolic response. The practical takeaway: choose plain, full-fat, or 2% Greek yogurt. Avoid anything flavored. The fat is not your enemy. The added sugar is. Add your own flavor with berries, a teaspoon of cinnamon, or a small handful of nuts. Number 3, instant oatmeal packets, the comfort food that spikes you like white bread. Now here is where we need to have an honest conversation about processing. Oats, in their natural form, are a genuinely excellent food for blood sugar management. Steel-cut oats and old-fashioned rolled oats contain intact beta-glucan fiber that forms a viscous gel in your digestive system, slowing glucose absorption beautifully. Think of beta-glucan like a net draped across your intestinal wall. It catches sugar molecules and releases them gradually. Instant oatmeal packets have been stripped, steamed, rolled paper thin, and pre-cooked. That beta-glucan net has been shredded. The oats dissolve in hot water in 90 seconds because there is almost no structural integrity left. Then the manufacturer adds brown sugar, maple flavoring, dried fruit pieces, and sometimes as much as 12 grams of added sugar per packet. A 2018 study published in the journal Nutrients found that highly processed oat products produced significantly higher glycemic responses than minimally processed oats in adults with impaired glucose tolerance. I tell all my patients over 60 the same thing. If your oatmeal cooks in under a minute, it will spike your blood sugar like a slice of white bread. The practical takeaway: switch to steel-cut oats or old-fashioned rolled oats. Cook them yourself. Top with a tablespoon of ground flaxseed, a small handful of pecans, and a quarter cup of fresh berries. Season with cinnamon. Ceylon cinnamon if you have it. That meal will hold your blood sugar steady for hours instead of crashing it by mid-morning. Now, what if I told you the next thing I am about to explain has nothing to do with food and everything to do with the one organ in your body that controls your blood sugar more powerfully than your pancreas? Number 4. The muscle crisis that nobody talks about. This is the part of the video where I need to pull back from the grocery list and explain something happening inside your body right now that is silently making every food on this list more dangerous. After the age of 30, you begin losing muscle mass at a rate of approximately 3 to 8% per decade. After 60, that rate accelerates dramatically. This is called sarcopenia, and it is arguably the most underdiagnosed metabolic threat facing older adults today. Here is why it matters for your blood sugar. Your skeletal muscle is the single largest consumer of glucose in your body. When you eat carbohydrates, insulin's primary job is to shuttle that glucose into muscle cells to be used or stored as glycogen. More muscle means more storage capacity. More capacity means lower blood sugar after meals. Less muscle means glucose has nowhere to go, so it stays in your bloodstream. A 2011 study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that low skeletal muscle mass was independently associated with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, regardless of body fat percentage. Read that again. Regardless of body fat, you can be thin and sarcopenic and profoundly insulin resistant. This is why the foods on this list become more dangerous after 60. Not just because your pancreas is aging, but because you have less muscle to absorb the glucose those foods produce. Every gram of muscle you lose makes every gram of carbohydrate you eat slightly more dangerous. The practical takeaway: resistance training is not optional after 60. It is metabolically essential. I tell my patients to aim for 2 to 3 sessions per week of basic resistance exercise, bodyweight squats, wall push-ups, resistance band rows. You do not need a gym, you need load on your muscles. Even a single set of 10 wall push-ups creates a glucose demand in your chest and arm muscles that helps clear sugar from your blood. This is not fitness advice. This is blood sugar management. Tell me below, when was the last time you did any form of resistance exercise? Even walking counts partially. I want to understand where you are starting from. Number 5. Dried fruit and trail mix, concentrated sugar disguised as a health snack. I know this one stings. Dried fruit feels wholesome. It comes in bags decorated with hiking imagery and words like natural energy and heart-healthy blend. But consider the math. A fresh apricot contains about 3.2 grams of sugar and weighs roughly 35 grams. A dried apricot weighs roughly 8 grams and still contains 3.2 grams of sugar. The water is gone. The sugar is compressed. You eat one fresh apricot and feel satisfied. You eat 8 dried apricots because they are tiny and feel like nothing in your hand, and you have consumed over 25 grams of sugar in what felt like a handful. Trail mix makes it worse because it adds sweetened chocolate pieces, yogurt-coated raisins, and sometimes honey-roasted nuts. A single quarter-cup serving of a popular trail mix contains over 15 grams of sugar. And nobody eats a quarter cup. You eat a fistful, which is closer to 3/4 of a cup, which means you have just consumed the sugar equivalent of a can of cola while believing you were eating something healthy. The practical takeaway: if you want fruit as a snack, eat it fresh and whole. A small handful of raw almonds or walnuts paired with one fresh piece of fruit gives you the fiber, the healthy fat, the protein, and the blood sugar stability that dried fruit and trail mix cannot provide. If you love the crunch of trail mix, make your own with raw nuts, unsweetened coconut flakes, and a small amount of dark chocolate chips, 85% cacao or higher. Number 6. White bread and refined pasta. Why they hit harder at 60 than they did at 40. Most of my patients know that white bread is not ideal, but many do not understand why it becomes significantly worse after 60. Here is the mechanism. When you eat refined carbohydrates, they are rapidly broken down into glucose because the bran and germ, the parts of the grain that contain fiber and slow digestion, have been stripped away. Imagine a time-release capsule versus a crushed powder. Whole grain is the capsule. It dissolves slowly and delivers its contents gradually. Refined grain is the powder. It hits your system all at once. Now compound that with the age-related decline in insulin sensitivity and the muscle loss we just discussed. At 40, your body had more muscle to absorb a rapid glucose spike and enough insulin sensitivity to manage the surge. At 65, you have less muscle, less insulin sensitivity, and often less physical activity. The same 2 slices of white toast that produced a manageable glucose response at 40 now produce a spike that your body cannot handle efficiently. A well-established body of research, including data from the landmark UK PDS trial published across multiple journals, has consistently shown that sustained postprandial glucose spikes contribute to long-term vascular complications in type 2 diabetes. The practical takeaway: Replace white bread with genuine whole grain bread. Look for the word whole as the first ingredient on the label, and look for at least 3 grams of fiber per slice. Replace regular pasta with lentil pasta or chickpea pasta, which contains significantly more protein and fiber. And here is a small trick many of my patients love. If you cook your pasta, let it cool in the refrigerator overnight, and reheat it the next day, the starch partially converts to resistant starch. Think of freshly cooked starch as throwing dry sawdust on a fire. It flares up instantly. Cooled and reheated starch is like a dense, slow-burning log. It produces a measurably lower glucose spike. Same pasta, different preparation, different metabolic outcome. Number 7, the breakfast cereal crisis, and the hidden danger I promised you. This is the warning I told you about at the beginning of this video. And if you are over 60 and eating cereal for breakfast, I need you to listen to every word. Breakfast cereal is perhaps the most successfully marketed unhealthy food in human history. Boxes covered in heart health claims, whole grain stamps, added vitamins and minerals, endorsements from heart associations, and inside that box, in nearly every case, is a refined, processed, high glycemic food that spikes blood sugar rapidly and provides almost no satiety, meaning you are hungry again within 2 hours. But the danger I want to focus on goes beyond glucose spikes. Remember the sarcopenia discussion from earlier? Muscle loss after 60 is one of the most critical metabolic threats you face. Your muscles need protein to maintain themselves. Breakfast is typically the meal where older adults consume the least protein. And what does a bowl of cereal provide? Roughly 3 to 4 grams of protein, in a meal where research suggests adults over 60 should be consuming 25 to 30 grams to combat age-related muscle wasting. A 2018 study published in the journal Clinical Nutrition found that front-loading protein intake at breakfast was associated with better preservation of muscle mass in older adults compared to the typical pattern of eating most protein at dinner. Let me tell you about a patient of mine named Robert, 68 years old, a retired accountant. Robert ate bran flakes with skim milk every morning for over 15 years. His cereal box had a red heart on it. He believed with absolute conviction that this breakfast was protecting his heart and managing his weight. When Robert came to me, his A1C was 6.4, solidly pre-diabetic. He had lost measurable muscle mass in his legs and arms over the previous 5 years. His grip strength was declining. He was becoming sarcopenic while eating a breakfast that gave him almost no protein and spiked his blood sugar to 162 within an hour. I put Robert on a continuous glucose monitor and asked him to eat his cereal on day 1 and an alternative breakfast on day 2. His cereal breakfast, fasting glucose 98, peak 162 at 50 minutes, back to baseline at 2 hours and 20 minutes. His alternative breakfast, 3 scrambled eggs with a half cup of sautéed spinach, a quarter of an avocado, and 1 slice of genuine whole grain toast. Fasting glucose 97, peak 121 at 65 minutes, back to baseline at 1 hour and 40 minutes, lower peak, slower rise, faster recovery, and 31 grams of protein to feed his starving muscles. Robert could see the data on his phone in real time. He has not touched a box of cereal since. The practical takeaway: replace your breakfast cereal with a protein-forward meal. 3 eggs cooked any way you like, with vegetables and 1 serving of whole grain. A bowl of plain Greek yogurt with nuts, seeds, and berries. Even last night's leftover chicken with roasted vegetables is a better breakfast than cereal after 60. Your muscles are silently begging for protein every morning, and cereal is answering with sugar. Controlling your blood sugar after 60 does not mean punishing yourself or giving up every food you enjoy. It means understanding that your body has changed, and the foods that served you well at 40 may be quietly working against you now. It is about working smarter with the body you have today, not the body you remember having 20 years ago. Every substitution I gave you today is simple, affordable, and available at any grocery store. You do not need exotic superfoods. You need real food, prepared simply. with an understanding of how your metabolism actually works at this stage of your life. If this video gave you clarity about foods you have been eating without realizing their impact, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. Tell me in the comments which of these 7 foods surprised you the most, or which one have you been eating every day without knowing what it was doing to your blood sugar. If you have a parent, a spouse, or a friend over 60 who eats cereal every morning and wonders why their numbers keep climbing, send this video to them directly. It could be the conversation that changes everything.